Hi, everyone. Just doing quick sound check. Can you please write if you can hear us well, if our sound is okay? So just like I will start talking. So if everything is okay, thank you. So my name is Zeynep, and this is Diogo. We are from Trust and Safety team, and today we will be talking about how to protect your website from getting compromised and how to recognize if your website or any other website that you're visiting is compromised. I will talk about what can you do and why it's important. And we will also take your questions in between the presentation, so please leave your questions either in the live chat under this video or in the comment box. Also, to remind you, next week we will also meet for online safety series, and we'll give an overview of AdWords policies. And at the same time, and the week after that, we'll have our final webcast about how to protect your AdWords account from compromise. I will give the word to Diogo to start talking about today's topic.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Zeynep, for the presentation. My name is Diogo. I work for the Trust and Safety team. And here today, we're going to be talking about how to recognize a hacked website. So a quick reminder, this is a live event. So ask your questions in the chat box, as Zeynep mentioned, or in the comment sections. As we go through the presentation, I'm going to give you the opportunity to have those questions being answered as we go. So feel free to ask them as you have them, and we're going to try to address them throughout the presentation. Today's agenda is here. We're going to start by exploring why do sites get hacked, what are the incentives. Then we're going to go into how the sites get hacked and what are some of the preventive tips to avoid your website from being hacked. How can you identify if your site has been hacked, and how can you go about solving it if it is indeed hacked? So regarding why do sites get hacked, there's a multitude of reasons, and the first and foremost is for financial gain through web spam. So there's a lot of hackers that they gain from placing links or redirections on your page, and sometimes those can be visible to you or the user, sometimes not, and this ends up providing a very big monetary incentive from hijacking websites and placing these links and redirections. Also for stealing sensitive information to access the user's personal data, such as credit card information or even login credentials. This is something that also is a very popular motive. Communicating a social or political message. Some sites can get defaced just for the sake of hacktivism, where someone just wants to send a message and they hijack popular or less popular sites to try to get that message across. And as well to propagate malware, either via iframes or some JavaScripts that get introduced into your code. You're not aware of those, but those end up distributing malicious content through everyone that accesses your website. So there's, as we mentioned, there's a lot of different reasons why websites get hacked, but there's one thing that they have in common, all these reasons, is that they end up providing a very poor experience to the user, and at best they end up encountering content that they were not looking for, and their experience is actually harmed by it. At worst, they can end up having very personal data being stolen, or their devices irreparably damaged. And in consequence, it's also very bad for site owners, because there's a reputation at risk, and besides the reputation, there can be a direct loss of clients or users. So Are there any questions at the moment? I see that we have one.
So there is also a bit of a delay, like when we're speaking.
Okay.
So yeah, so the questions may not come like right away.
Okay.
Yeah, but we have one question here.
So the first question is, how long does it generally take Google to identify a hacked website? I've noticed a site in the featured snippets that seems to have been hacked for at least a few weeks, and it's still there now. Thank you for the question. It might take some time for us to find it. We try to do a better job every day at identifying, finding, and tackling these behaviors, and making sure that our users are protected. And we're going to go into a couple of the ways in which we make sure that happens. If you find any website that is hacked and we haven't identified it as such, you can submit a spam report. And if you just look for Google, submit a spam report on Google, you will be directed to a page that allows you to tell us that there's a website that's potentially compromised, and we then will take a look at it. So we try to do our jobs very well, but we count on everyone's help to make sure that we don't miss anything.
Okay, so it's better to leave the questions in the live chat so we can see them right away, but you can also write them in the comments. And if we cannot address the question now, we will try to answer it also later in writing.
So we're going to have, I'm going to stop for questions after each section. So if you feel free to post them at any point, and we're going to get to them. So we've seen why sites get hacked. Now we're going to go a bit into how do sites actually get hacked and some of the preventive tips. So one of the main ways that hackers end up hacking and getting access to sites and personal data is still via trying to guess passwords. And this seems like a very basic way of doing it, but it is in fact one that still works very well. And on the box on the left, we see these are the top 10 passwords, used passwords in 2016. And you can see that they are just very easy to guess. And so hackers do still have a very huge incentive to utilize this technique. Besides this, they also do try to brute force guess these by kind of just running scripts and trying to guess them and doing it several iterations. But again, it will always start from the weaker links. So one very crucial tip for everyone is to make your passwords hard to guess. I mean, I guess this is a very no-brainer, but still there's a lot of people that they are a bit too trusting, and they end up putting themselves and their websites at risk. So the best advice is to have a combination of letters, digits, and symbols, because that makes the amount of combinations that hackers would have to need to get through much higher and makes your password much stronger. Also, do not reuse passwords across your different accounts, such as CMS, Google account, hosting provider, because if by any chance a hacker does guess or get one of your passwords, they would have access to the whole set of tools and services that you're accessing, and that would make their lives much easier. So definitely try to diversify your passwords. And finally, the last tip that I can give is the two-factor authentication. And what is a two-factor authentication? This is something that Google has been pushing for very strongly, and it's basically a second step in authenticating, in kind of like accessing your website, accessing your accounts. And so, besides entering the password, you are then asked for something else, and this something else can be a code on your mobile phone. It can be like a dynamic PIN that gets generated by a small device. So enabling this, and there's different ways that can be more convenient for you. Enabling this will definitely allow you to protect yourself much better, because even if hackers do get access to your password, if they don't have this second factor authenticator device, they will not be able to access your account. So this is like a must-have that I think everyone should definitely consider implementing. So another way how sites get hacked is when they're missing security updates. And when creating websites, we utilize a lot of different services like content management systems, plugins, etc. And all of these, where hackers try to exploit and try to find vulnerabilities and try to kind of like dig into how they can access these and exploit the vulnerabilities. So what happens is that these services are constantly launching new security updates, and these are security updates that everyone should be on top of and should, if possible, even automatically update. If not automatically update, at least be on the lookout and make sure that you are in the loop of your content management system, your hosting provider, every service that you're dealing with, that you are on top of what are the new security updates and all your software is updated. Again, sign up for security announcements from the software providers that you're engaging with, and for everything that you're dealing with, like from plugins to add-ons. Insecure themes and plugins, especially with content management systems that allow us to create sites like a drag and drop and make it easy for everyone to create their own website. These allow also to have additional like specific themes, specific plugins that do fancy things, but we need to be careful and we need to be on the lookout for what we actually install. So again, keep all the plugins and themes updated, because the developers do try to keep them safe and try to counter the hackers' attempts to find them. You should also choose developers that have a habit of keeping their softwares patched. I mean, when you're looking for a theme and you have information on who the developer is, try to check how often or what's the reputation for this developer to update that theme or update that plugin. Beware of free and trusted software. If you are looking to add a new service, a new plugin to your website, make sure that that's a reputable developer that's behind it, or at least that a lot of users have rated that highly, and that it's not free and untrusted, that you don't really know what comes in the code of that plugin. And if you do find a plugin that is suspicious or straight up malicious, it's not enough to simply deactivate it. You have to hard remove it from your website. You have to look for that plugin in your code, and you need to make sure that it gets removed. Because what happens is that when you add a plugin, a specific set of code is added to your website that enables that service to be provided, but that code can come in conflict with your security settings and can open breaches that can be then exploited by hackers. So definitely hard removing plugins that are suspicious is a must as well. Social engineering. This one very common way of social engineering is what we know as phishing, and this is when hackers try to get users to input their personal information, their login credentials, their credit card details, by pretending that they are legit services. So they try to trick authorized users into providing this confidential information. So check the requester's identity. If you get an email, if you access a site, if you go anywhere that is asking you to provide that information, confirm that is a legit service. And often the legit services will tell you what they will and what they will not ask, and that way you can know what not to provide ever if requested. And obviously as well, prefer direct navigation rather than following links in emails. So if you get emails that have some links inputted in there, be careful and try to access the service and the websites that you're trying to access directly rather than via third-party links. And then finally, security policy holes. So a lot of times when we allow users to interact with our website, there can be some loopholes there that hackers then can exploit. So for example, if you give users extra authorization to your website, to areas of your website that they shouldn't have, if you don't request users to provide like a stronger password, etc., etc. So a couple of tips here: ensure that your website is configured with the highest security controls, and by disabling all the unnecessary service. So make sure that you also test the access controls and the user privileges. Try to register for on your website as a guest user. Try to see what you could do with a guest account. Try to see what you could do with a basic account, and see if there's no additional accesses that are being given that you don't want to. And also use encryption for pages that handle sensitive information, like login pages. Make sure that that part of your website is definitely encrypted, and it's not easy for hackers to kind of like just jump in the middle and get that information as it is being inputted. So let's go back to the questions, see if there's anything.
Yeah, so guys, if you have any questions, leave them in the chat box. Okay, so there is a question.
Yes, I guess this depends on how your site is.
Maybe you can read the question.
Oh, sorry. The question is, can one avoid a brute force attack by only allowing three password tries? I guess if you manage to encode this into your site, either on your custom design site or in the template and CMS that you're using, if that is a possibility, then definitely it's a very good practice. But beware of like clumsy users that might just like mistype their password a couple of times and allow them maybe 1 hour later or a certain amount of time later still to retry to access. And I say this because I'm one of those clumsy users, and it has happened to me in the past that I just like mistype it a couple of times and then I get blocked out of things. But yes, definitely, if this is something that you can encode into your site, then that's an additional security measure. And we have a very good suggestion from a new user as well. Use CAPTCHA. That's also a very good suggestion. For those who don't know, CAPTCHA are those like, besides you putting in your password, you need to prove that you're a live user and that you're trying to, for example, we have a little photo of a little code that you need to input, or Google now has CAPTCHAs that ask you to, for example, identify from a set of pictures how many of those are traffic signs or storefronts, etc. So it's another set of authentication that an automated device that wants to brute force into your site wouldn't be able to go past. Okay. And so, I think we can move on.
Yeah, let's move on. Okay.
So now that we see how sites get hacked and why, how can you know if your website has been hacked? So there's a couple of different ways that you can go about it. The first one is by checking the notification in search engine results. And this is an example from Google. And this is what happens when Google does identify that a website has been compromised. We will mark it as this site may be hacked, or in case of that site distributing malware, we can say that that site might be distributing malicious content, phishing as well. We have different messages tailored for the type of compromise that the website has been encountering, but this is a way that you can check if your website has been marked as being compromised, and as a user as well, to be aware of a website that you're trying to visit, that it might be compromised and that you might want to be careful. So you can also check if you've received a message in Search Console. For those who don't know, Search Console is a set of tools that Google makes available to webmasters, to website owners, to register, verify their website, and then we give them a whole bunch of information. And one big section that we've been focusing on for the Search Console is in fact around messaging and security issues. And so if we do find that your website has been compromised, we will send you a message. And this is good because we will generally give you a couple of examples of URLs of your website that have been compromised, so you can actually debug directly why those URLs were compromised, what is the hacked, etc. If you haven't registered yourself on Google on Search Console yet, you have the links here, google.com/webmasters. That's the main page for the Search Console, and then you can register your website from there. Also, user reports. Be on the lookout if users are reporting that your website is distributing malware or might be compromised in any way. And we found that users usually do complain and try to get that message across. So be on the lookout for that as well. And if you don't have a way for users to give you this kind of feedback, make sure that that you have some way for them to alert you if their experience is not being up to par. And then also, on a more monitoring basis, on a more ongoing, trying to get ahead of the curve, check your site logs, check for unusual activity, check if there's any user that has registered himself with admin rights that shouldn't. Check if there's anything on your website that is suspicious. In general, just like monitor your website for any suspicious activity. Another way to confirm, now you suspect that your website is hacked, but how do you go about confirming? One very useful tip is to use the site colon operator. And this means that you check on Google, you go to Google and you do site colon and then you put your website. And then you can see all the URLs that Google has indexed on your website. And then either from there directly, you see that there's some weird URLs, some weird content on the description or the titles of your pages. Or even if you don't find anything, add to that search a couple of very weird keywords that would normally not be present on your website. A couple of abuse vectors that we found that hackers try to input content is around pharmaceuticals, around casino, around free stuff, cheap purchases, etc. So anything at your website, any type of content that your website shouldn't be showing, and you can, if you make a search for that, and your website actually has URLs that are showing these, that will become very apparent to you, and you will be able to identify some of the pages that have been hacked. And after you've identified these pages, you can then directly debug and try to understand what the problem is. Another way to check is, again, going to Search Console and checking for unexpected search terms. So this is what Search Console looks like. And on the left, you have various different tools. And on the Search Analytics tool, we give you a summary of what are the top queries that your website is ranking for. And this is very good in general for checking what your website is showing up and not showing up in Google. And especially when it comes to security issues, because you will be able to see if your website all of a sudden started showing up for a couple of examples that are shown here, cheap Nike, Japanese queries, something that is very unusual. That should give you a very good overview and a very good initial sighting into suspicious activity. If none of these are working, but you still have your website being identified as hacked, or you still suspect that there's some fishy activity going on, you also have another tool called Fetch as Google. And what you can do is, if you've identified a couple of weird URLs or like suspicious URLs, or even on the root of your site, if you see that it's acting strange, you can fetch it as Google. And what it will do is it will show you how Google sees that page. And why is this important and why is this useful? Sometimes hackers, they will insert content into your website, but it will not be visible to users, and it will not be visible to you. Instead, it will be on the back of your code. It will be hidden, and it's just meant for Google to read it and Google to find it, and for them to gain the benefits from that happening. So if you fetch as Google and you see the site and the page exactly as Google is seeing it, then you can find these terms. You can find this hacked injected content, and it can allow you to debug this much easier. Again, this is a tool that's available in Search Console. And finally, there are some cases where the hacks are not present on all devices, meaning, example given, they are not showing on desktop, but they might be showing on mobile. So always check all your devices when you're trying to find if your website is hacked, compromised, because in some cases there are some redirections, which is one of the reasons why hackers might try to invade your site. Some redirections that only happen to mobile users, so they only happen when you access your website on the mobile device. And so it's important to make sure that you check on both devices, so to be thorough and being on the safe side. And that's it for this section. Let's go back to the questions.
Okay.
So, question, if my site is marked as hacked within Google, do I, as a site owner, get a notification from Google saying that my site is hacked? You will if your website is registered in Search Console. So if you register your website in Search Console and your account is registered as being the owner of that account and that website, we will post those messages on Search Console on the message board, and you can also define it so whenever you get a message from Search Console, you get an email as well on your account, so as to be more proactive and kind of like getting that information without having to check over and over again Search Console. I hope that answered your question. If not, feel free to put a follow-up. And second question, once the site is back to normal, no longer hacked, is there a way to tell Google about it so that it can be removed? This site is hacked label, or do we wait for Google to reindex the site and upload cert? Definitely you can tell us, and definitely you should tell us. That can also be done on Search Console. So on Search Console, we have an area which is called security issues, where we're going to post the issues. And whenever it's fixed, you can go through there to tell Google, hey, Google, I fixed it. At the same time, you have another section, which is manual actions, which is broader for any action that Google has taken on this site. And from there as well, you can tell us that your website has been cleaned now. And if you want as well, if you don't see any message on the manual actions, check the security issues section. If you don't see any of those, but you still see that message and you want to try to speed up this process of Google seeing it, you can again use the tool Fetch as Google, so we can like fetch again the page or the site, and we can like try to speed up the process. It doesn't mean that it will be instantaneous, but it can boost it. With that said, I wouldn't recommend doing it every time for every single page because that's not the most efficient way, and that tool has a limit of how many URLs can be submitted at one time. But if you see that Google is not being that we're taking a bit longer to address your request, that's one way that you can do it. Again, if you have any follow-ups on this, feel free to post. In the meantime, we have no other questions, so we are going to proceed to the last bit of our presentation. And the last bit is, how do I solve the hack? First off, this is going to be your go-to link for everything, even if your website is not hacked, because this is where we have the biggest repository of content and information on hacked websites, how Google sees them, how can you secure yourself and protect yourself. So much so that this presentation was modeled around the information that is there. So definitely, if you take one thing back, check this link and go through it and dive a bit deeper into all the ways in which you can protect your site and make sure that your site is safe. First off, how do we solve the hack? So in some cases, it's not going to be very easy. So you need to start by building a team, and the team can be internal, can be you, can be anyone that can help you, but it will also be the services that you're involved with. So first off, absolutely contact your hoster, contact the service that's hosting your site, because one, this might be a wider hack on the hosting service. So there might be other sites from that hosting service that are hacked. And so it's useful for that hosting service to know and also jump in. And also, even if that's not the case, they will help you figure out and they will help you try to solve this issue. So in most cases, hosting services will help you fight this and fix this. If that's not the case, and if you're not getting enough support, you can always transfer your site to a hosting service that has a higher reputation for being an expert and helpful with dealing with abused and hacked content. Find reputable support communities. If you're using a specific CMS, or if you're using any specific type of plugins, or if you're using any specific type of services, try to find if there's a dedicated support or help center or help forum that can help you, where people that might have gone through the same issue will already have solved the issue and can give you tips and a head start. And also try to find other security forums where experts in the matter will be able to provide very good tips and will be able to guide you through the process. And in case you feel that that you or your internal team is not apt to solve this issue on your own, consider enlisting the assistance of a trusted security expert. There are people that they specialized on fixing these issues, so these are probably going to be very good assets to have on your team as well. Second, quarantine your site. Take your site offline. Why is this important? Because if you find your website to be hacked before Google does, taking it offline will avoid Google kind of like just having to come in and kind of like tell your users that your site is hacked and have all the reputation hazards that will come with that. So instead, you can get ahead of the curve and you can quarantine your website. Put a response code, like a temporary and available, redirect your site to a different service, to a different host, with a page saying we are temporarily offline, we're doing some maintenance, etc. And this will definitely avoid first your reputation hazard, and will also avoid, obviously very important, the hazards that can come to users from interacting with your compromised website. So definitely this is something that you should start off by doing. Also because if your site is offline and you don't have the pressure of time to fix it before someone gets harmed by the compromise or before Google finds it, then you have a better chance of kind of like just having your own time to fix this. Second, check sites' user accounts. So go through your site and check all the users that are registered there. Check if there's anyone that is suspicious and has been created by hackers. Check anyone that has accesses, admin accesses, or more access to parts of your website that they shouldn't. And in general, kind of try to do a strong inventory and due diligence on the amount of users that on the type of users that have been registered. Some are going to be easier to identify because their usernames are going to be very glaringly bad. Some others are going to be a bit dicier. So do take your time to make sure that any user that shouldn't have access to your website does get removed. At the same time, go back to that section where you check your website's permissions and make sure that users are not getting permissions that they shouldn't. So whoever got access to your website when they shouldn't does not have the chance to do it again. And change all your passwords. If someone got access to their website and that happened via password hijacking, that's something that you should definitely take care of. And since there's no way to know how they did it, by default, changing your password is a recommendation that we're giving. Identifying and removing the hack. So there are many possible hacks. There are too many for today, and so I would defer again to the google.com webmaster/hacked. But I would say this: it's not enough to just remove the hack. Imagine that you find a content that was injected into your site and you just remove it. That's not enough, because if that content appeared there in the first place, is because there was a vulnerability. And if there was a vulnerability and that is not fixed, then that can be exploited again. So it's important to kind of like be sure by the time that you're telling Google that you fixed your website and by the time that you're putting it back online, that you found that vulnerability and that you're sure this was a vulnerability that we've taken care of, and I've checked through the rest of the site and there's nothing else that can be exploited from here, so I'm safe. And if you start trying to fix your website and you have any questions, one good advice that I can give you is to visit any of our Google Webmaster help forums. We have those for a variety of languages, English and not just. And there we have not only Googlers but also experts in the matter that can help you with giving you some tips and trying to help you identify the hacks as well. Any questions on this? Let's see.
So this is the last section, right?
This was the last section.
Yeah, so guys, if you have now any last questions, please ask them in chat and Diogo will be happy to answer them.
Yep. So we have one one question. Is the search ranking affected in long term on hacked sites? So if you put your website offline and you manage to fix it in a reasonable amount of time, your search ranking should not be affected. If we see that your website has been compromised, and we're going to be trying to find which pages should really not be showing up at Google, and which pages still have some good content but might be a mix of bad content, and which pages are good overall. We're going to try to make this distinction, but in general, we're going to consider your whole website compromised. And in the long term, your search ranking can be affected, but it can also be affected only because it got a natural boost from these compromised and injected pages, or it can actually be the other. So that should not be the main concern, because as soon as your website is fixed and we start looking at it as a safe website again, we're going to look at the same conditions and the same signals that we used to, and we're going to be able to value your website. So search ranking should not be your main priority. Our main priority should actually be the fact that we're going to tell every user that your website is compromised, and that might incur in users that do see your website in search results not visiting it. So that's the main advice that I can give. I think we can give a couple of seconds or minutes.
Because there is a bit of a delay as well in the live presentation.
And we have some time as well.
So we have some time for more questions if you have. So just to remind you, next week we'll be meeting at the same time to talk about AdWords policies. So we'll give an overview of some AdWords policies. And the week after that, at the same time, we'll meet for a session on how to protect your AdWords account from compromise and what you can do to not have your AdWords account hacked. Okay.
If you have any questions post section, I think they can still post them, right?
You can still post the questions post to this section, because the video will still be on the page. It's just that you need to post them in the comments then, because the chat box will not be live anymore.
And I encourage you to do that, because we can come back and answer them in the comment section directly.
Yeah. Okay, so if there are no questions, then I guess we can wrap it up. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you everyone for attending this session. I hope it was useful. If you have any additional questions or any additional topic that you'd like to discuss, again, once more, you can do it in the comment section. You can also do it directly on the Webmaster Help Forum. We have a section dedicated solely to site protection from hacking and security issues. And we have a very vibrant community that's always willing to discuss best practices and to help out webmasters and website owners in need. Once again, thank you, and
thank you.
Leave it to Zeynep.
Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next week at the same time.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.